New Mutants Annual number 2, October 1986. This issue is awesome. The big thing about this being a key, though, is this is the first U.S. appearance of Psylocke. There's also a pivotal moment in this book that we'll get into in just a moment, but I just want everyone to know why this book was significant. And we open up on Betsy, and apparently the way that I read it is this is an interlude between issues of Captain Britain where they just gotten back from somewhere and they end up in the Swiss Alps. And Psylocke has essentially, spoiler alerts, if you haven't read this, pause this video, go get the book, and you're back. She's essentially picked up the mantle of Captain Britain for a while, and it cost her her sight. So legally, she's blind. But it says here, fortunately, however, she's a telepath and does not need eyes to see. A Psylocke. Her mutant powers are formidable, but they did not save her from being blinded. And then we see her turn around to use her powers, and she goes, no! And then we get this gorgeous, if I could actually turn the page. And then it says, nor do they save her now. And man, this is what I'm talking about, where a lot of modern artists, their work is gorgeous, but it's just too digital. I still miss this traditional style. Now, the other, there's actually threefold why this book is so important. First, U.S. appearance of Psylocke. The second one being is this is the first time the name Psylocke is dropped, where they kind of explain being, she uses her psyche to unlock the mind, hence Psylocke. But we find out that the baddies of this issue are none other than Mojo and Spiral. And whenever they're together, I love it. I kind of wish that Longshot would have made an appearance. But nonetheless, you see how they just break Psylocke apart. And as these repulsive creatures say their eyes are the windows to the soul, somebody plucked out the one. Now Mojo has the other. Behold, Spiral. How charmingly she welcomes me. We're two of a kind. Or we will be once I rip out her spine. Doesn't that make you happy, Psylocke? Of course it does. Open your eyes, screw loose. The toy's broken. I know that. That's the point. The challenge comes in putting it back together. I just love the... In a way, Mojo reminds me of a more talkative version of Leatherface. He just has that psycho look about how he has all the wires pulling his features back and whatnot. It just gives you the willies. Now, this is Stanley presenting Chris Claremont writing, Alan Davis the artwork, Tom Orzganowski doing the lettering, Glynis Oliver doing the coloring, Ann Nasanti was the editor, and Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief. And, of course, the New Mutants were created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. So, all-star cast, and I just love how we see one of the letterheads of Xavier's school. Secret home of the New Mutants. Big fat hairy dill. Why do we do these things that we do? So this book is very much a coming-of-age issue, and it's very much like a horror story, so these two always seem to go hand in hand. So Doug is just talking about... He goes, I don't know, this sounds stupid, but sometimes being a mutant drives me crazy. Look at me. I'm gifted with the ability to unscramble virtually any language there is, says Cypher. I'm part of a team that's been to the stars. I've met the Norse gods in Asgard. I've helped save the whole world, and I can't tell anyone about it. Not a word even to my parents, because I'm afraid they'll think I'm crackers, or worse, come after me as public enemy number one. When I'm in town hanging out with kids who were my pals before I transferred here, I don't fit in. The stuff they talk about that doesn't have any meaning for me. And so they think I've turned into a snob. And he's just wondering if this is all worth it. And Danny just kind of, she empathizes, but she goes, I'm a Valkyrie. It allows me to see who's about to die. And if I choose, I can battle death to save them. But even if I win, I'm only delaying the inevitable. No matter how hard I try, I can't keep people alive forever. How do you think that makes me feel? Each morning, I'll wonder if I'll see the Reaper's shadow on the face of someone I care for. And for that moment, I'm so scared. I just want to run away and hide. But as Mirage, I'm also the co-leader of the New Mutants. I can't deny that responsibility any more than I can my power. So she essentially says, Doug, you can either suck it up and learn how to live day by day, or you can just dive into self-loathing and self-pity. And it's a good talk, and it shows that Danny is indeed the perfect pick to lead alongside Cannonball. Now we see Rain and all these different characters watching television across the world. A new animated television series makes its debut. Entitled Wild Ways. I'm Spyro, and I, Gentle Beans, am Mojo, Lifebringer. And I'm Psylocke. Welcome to our world. And you just see even Shin's brother and sister are digging it. You see that Bobby DaCosta is loving it. Same with Rain. And then McGann, I don't know if that's supposed to be McGann. Yeah. And then we see that Brian sees his sister because she's been missing for months now. So he knows that he needs to do something. And so we see Captain Britain just bash down these walls where he's located her. And he's just thinking, this cowardly swine have been warned, now to make them scared. A dose of psychological warfare. But when he gets to face to face with the villains, he is brought low to a childlike state. And keep that in mind for later in this book, because this is 46 pages. So we see Captain Britain's getting taken down. We see that Sunspot heeds what Mojo was saying, come and join us with the Wild Ways. So in a way, this is very much kind of a sign of the times, because if you didn't grow up in the 80s and the 90s, the news and TV actually used to have to say it's 9 p.m. Where's your children? So I just kind of like how this is what do you call it? I don't want to say, is it a euphemism? I don't know. You guys know what I'm trying to say. The subtext of what they're trying to say in reality without making it sound preachy. Just the way that kids are influenced by TV and go out and do their thing if they're not supervised. So very good analogy. There's the word. Now we also get some pickup where Sam's not able to make left turns anymore. And apparently when they were in Asgard, the New Mutants died and then they were brought back. No, it was the Beyonders, Secret Wars. There it is. But when they came back, they're not able to control their powers like they once were. And Danny essentially says, we suffered a marked deterioration in our skills, except for Sunspot. We've regressed to the performance level when we were established with the school. Our minds know what to do, but our bodies have forgotten how. So I just like that all of a sudden they're starting to feel confident enough of working as a team, but now, because of what happened in Secret Wars, they don't have the abilities that we did. So we get all this information thrown at us at once. We see all these mutants and kids go to the Wild Ways with Mojo. We see Captain Britain brought down. We see this gruesomeness that's happening with Psylocke, the mutants losing their abilities. And then I like that we finally get a little bit of levity. It says, meanwhile, upstairs, it's Illyana's Rasputin's turn to clear the breakfast table. And of course, since she came back from limbo, she kind of has that attitude about her. She goes, ugh, there has to be an easier. I'll teleport this whole mess to limbo and let my pet critters do the dishes and set the table for lunch. Positively brilliant. I mean, what's the point of being a demon sorceress and absolute ruler of a magical kingdom if you can't get your servants to do an occasional... And so the table comes back. Oh, cute, guys. Very cute. So even though the subject matter is just kind of like, roar, it just has to make you laugh a little bit. So we're kind of seeing how everybody's kind of settling back into Xavier's school. And then we get a moment with Sunspot, Doug Ramsey, and Warlock. They got to pull up this rooted tree. But we're thinking, wait a minute, we just saw Sunspot go somewhere else. And so Warlock's the first one to notice that something's off about Bobby. They go to lift this tree, because remember when Sunspot is when it's full powered, has the power of like almost godlike. But something happens that ends up with DaCosta being in the meat locker. Or so we think. And with all that said, we finally see what Mojo has in store for everyone that he is kidnapping. We see that Betsy gets new eyes and just that forced Chelsea grin just to kind of mimic what Mojo looks like. Whew. And then we also see the power of Mojo if anybody doesn't really like or kind of goes against his wishes, what he can do to somebody. I mean, even though he's a nasty fat slob, he is a power to behold. Now, We see Sunspot, we see Rain, Shin's brother and sister, and some of the Wild Pack have basically been aged up. And that's another, I guess you could say, euphemism, is there's a lot of age differentiations in this issue where some people are grown up, grown down. I don't know. It's odd, but it serves the story. So for that, I'll let it go. And the New Mutants start fighting amongst each other. Why? They don't know, but they can't stop themselves. Except for Armara. Who's Magma, she tries to stand up against this and they go, "You've been a very naughty girl, Armara. And since you insist on behaving like a child, then a child is what you shall become." Now, for this story, it makes sense. But one thing that I've always noticed through Claremont's run that I never understood is how, Storm was reverted to a child, Magneto was reverted to a child, we had the X-Babies, and I'm just thinking, what the heck? I don't know. If anybody understands that running theme in his books, let me know, because it's always kind of throwing me for a loop, and just, it's an overly used thing that he did, and I don't quite get it. Now, with that said, remember, we go back to the beginning of the book where Doug was kind of feeling sorry for himself. He finds an aged-down Captain Britain. And it's Doug's turn to step up and say, "You have the confidence to do this. You may not be as strong as you were as an adult, but believe in yourself. Don't you want to save your sister? Your choice, pal. Which will it be?" So we can kind of see this, how far Doug has come since the beginning of the novel. Now, with that said, remember how I said there was 3 things that were kind of first in this first appearance of Psylocke, the word Psylocke being used. This one is also the first issue where Doug kind of makes a quote-unquote sacrifice and actually merges with Warlock. It's the only way that they're able to fight against Betsy's psychic powers, because at this point she hasn't been merged with Quanon, so she doesn't have all the powers that we see later on during the Jim Lee era and on. This is back when she just had her psychic abilities and just a regular human body that wasn't trained for human assassin, all that good stuff. And so Doug's like, we got to merge together. Even if it means sacrificing myself, it means I could save someone else. So again, all through this, we see Doug maturing. And it's just a great way, again, coming of age type book. But when they finally hunt down Betsy, we can see how far gone she is. And I just mean, look at that uncanny valley that the art team gives to her face. And it is very uncomfortable to see. Especially when she goes, "Oh, I see you there. You want to get inside my mind? Here, take a look." And so we see everything that Mojo and Spiral has done to Betsy's mind, where basically she's not herself anymore. And again, that's another thing about Claremont, is he's always talking about psychological issues. I mean, if you remember when they introduced Legion, how we went into his mind and met all his different multiple personalities, just all these different thematic events that I see through his books. It's just interesting. Is it's like something that he was interested in or something that he was trying to say? I never was able to pin it down, and I've never had a chance to ask the man when I met him because I was too starstruck. So if y'all have any ideas, let me know. But here, this reminds me of something you'd see like in a Bill Sienkiewicz type style. Love how he's able to finally see how Warlock looks, and he's like, this is amazing. It's things that I never thought I could dream of or perceive. It's so wonderful and so weird. And so the battle takes place in Elizabeth's mind, and we see how far gone she is thanks to all the damage that Mojo has put upon her. Now, I don't want to give away what happens because it's a great little way that Psylocke finally fights back and how everyone has to coax her back. And it also creates something that after this book I'd never seen before, because it's Doug that essentially convinces her. And so they bond in a sense. She basically says, "Doug, for everything that we've been through, you can call me Betsy, not Ms. Braddock." And this is how she first joins the X-Men. She tells Brian that she needs to learn how to hone her mutant abilities. And here again, so she sees Doug looking down at her and she goes, "Old life over. New one's about to begin. I'm afraid. Douglas is watching, my guardian angel. How much he cares. More than he realizes how much I care." in return. So I've never seen anything else come of Betsy and Doug Ramsey. Like, was he trying to gear up for them to be in a relationship, or I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. But here, compared to how we've seen Psylocke evolve over the years, how here the New Mutants gather around her and accept her, and she just kind of looks like a school teacher in the midst of all these young New Mutants. It's an excellent read, a lot of emotional beats, a lot of psychological thriller, a lot of horrific body modification. It's an excellent read all around, guys. Highly recommend it if you've enjoyed what you've seen. Please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop or wherever you like to get your comics and action figures and get this book or a collected trade with it. However, you can get your hands on it. And if you've enjoyed this review, I really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you want to hit that fancy little X bell next to subscribe, that way as I can continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.